Tonight, let's drift into one of America's most enduring mysteries, the Zodiac Killer. Not with fear, but with quiet curiosity. Between 1968 and 1969, a shadowy figure sent coded letters to newspapers, taunting police and signing them with a symbol. But here's what's strange. Despite decades of investigation, his identity remains unknown. How did he evade capture? And why do his ciphers still haunt us? Settle in as we unravel this puzzle, gently, slowly, letting the mystery lull you into sleep.
The Zodiac himself seemed to take pleasure in this confusion. In later letters, he referenced newspaper articles about the investigation, corrected false information, and mocked amateur sleuths. He hinted at identities, then pulled back, leaving investigators wondering whether he was taunting them with truths or simply sowing chaos. He signed off with bizarre tallies, me 37, SFPD 0, claiming far more victims than could be proven. Some detectives believed he exaggerated, inflating his legend. Others feared the true toll would never be known. As the years went on, the tone of his letters shifted. The threats grew less urgent, the boasting more self-conscious. He mailed holiday greetings, playful cards scrawled with his symbol, even commenting on television portrayals of his crimes. It was as though he had grown more invested in his image than in violence itself. By the mid-1970s, genuine Zodiac letters dwindled and eventually stopped. The man who once seemed unstoppable faded away, leaving only his legend. Still, the mystery refused to die. Advances in technology rekindled hope. Forensic experts attempted to extract DNA from saliva on the letters, though most samples were too degraded. Fingerprints taken from crime scenes proved partial or contaminated. In 2020, a team of codebreakers spanning multiple countries finally solved the infamous 340 cipher, a message that had baffled experts for over 50 years. Yet the solution was anticlimactic, more boasts, more denials, but no name. The biggest secret remained untouched. Even the evidence itself betrayed investigators. Key items had been mishandled, bloodied fabric discarded, clothing stored improperly, fingerprints lost. Jurisdictions had worked separately, guarding their own files, leaving gaps the Zodiac had exploited while alive, and that time only widened. When police tried to reopen the case with modern tools, they found the trail cold and fragmented. Meanwhile, the Zodiac transformed in the public imagination. He went from a feared figure of the night to a cultural riddle, studied like folklore. Robert Graysmith's books turned the case into a publishing sensation. David Fincher's film Zodiac captured the frustration of chasing a ghost, dramatizing the toll it took on detectives and journalists who couldn't let go. Online forums sprang up where amateur sleuths dissected letters line by line. Podcasts re-examined every clue, YouTube channels animated theories. The Zodiac symbol, once a mark of terror, became an icon stamped on t-shirts, posters, and album covers. That transformation is striking. What once paralyzed parents with fear is now treated as a puzzle, a curiosity. The letters are studied for handwriting quirks. The ciphers are tackled like Sudoku. Even his misspellings and childish threats, once menacing, now feel like the insecurities of a man desperate for attention. Time has softened him into something almost abstract, a mystery more than a monster. And yet the fascination endures. 2 of his ciphers remain unsolved. His true identity is still unknown. Each failed suspect, each vanished clue preserves the allure of the case. We are drawn to mysteries that resist closure, to stories that refuse to end. Had police unmasked him in 1970, his tale might have concluded in a courtroom. Instead, it became infinite, an unfinished story generations continue to revisit. Perhaps that is why the Zodiac endures, not because of the crimes themselves, but because of the questions he left behind. We are compelled by what we can't answer. The man is almost certainly gone, but the puzzle remains alive, waiting for someone to finish it. Maybe technology will one day expose his name. Maybe a hidden confession will surface. Or maybe the mystery will never be solved, and that will be its lasting power. For now, the story remains open. The letters won't all crumble. The ciphers will remain, challenging new code breakers. The fear has faded, but the fascination has not. The Zodiac is more than a killer. He is a riddle carved into American history. a man who turned violence into theatre and who, by vanishing, became immortal. The murders themselves began in ways that felt almost ordinary. Lovers' lanes, isolated stretches of road, quiet places where young couples gathered for privacy, these were the Zodiac's hunting grounds. In December 1968, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were shot on a dark, rural road. The crime seemed random at first, brutal, but without a clear motive. Just 7 months later, Michael Margot and Darlene Ferrin were gunned down in Vallejo. Margot survived, badly wounded, and would later recall the chilling detail of the attacker's flashlight beam, blinding them before the gunshots erupted. But it was what followed that set this killer apart. Shortly after the attack, police received a call from a calm, male voice. He claimed responsibility for both the Vallejo shooting and the earlier double murder. He spoke as if reading from a script, leaving no doubt that he wanted credit. Soon after, the first letters arrived. Each was signed with a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. Each contained a cipher demanding newspapers print his code on their front pages or more people would die. The press complied, fearing what would happen if they didn't. Readers pored over the puzzles, amateur cryptographers joining the effort alongside law enforcement. Within days, a high school teacher and his wife cracked the first cipher. It revealed not a name, but a boast. "I like killing because it is so much fun," it read, chilling in its simplicity. The message offered no identity, just a philosophy of violence dressed up as entertainment. The Zodiac fed on attention and the letters grew bolder. He threatened to shoot school children unless his messages were printed. He described building bombs to blow up buses, complete with diagrams of his contraptions. He mocked police for their failures, even adopting a mocking nickname for them, the Blue Pigs. Newspapers reluctantly published his words, knowing that public safety might depend on it. Parents in Northern California began pulling their children from class. Police cars followed buses, scanning rooftops for snipers. His threats alone reshaped daily life. Then came the attack at Lake Berryessa in September 1969. A young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were relaxing on the shore when a hooded figure approached. He wore a black executioner-style mask with his symbol emblazoned across the chest. He tied them up, explained in a flat, rehearsed voice that he needed their car, and then savagely stabbed them. Hartnell survived by playing dead. Shepard did not. Before leaving, the Zodiac walked to their car and scrawled on the door his symbol, the dates of his previous murders, and the word "buy knife." It was less a crime scene than a stage set for his performance. A month later, in San Francisco, the Zodiac hailed a taxi. He shot the driver, Paul Stein, and left the body slumped across the seat. This time, he was almost caught. Teenagers watching from a window saw the killer wipe down the cab and walk away. They called police immediately. Officers even stopped a man matching the description nearby, but because of a miscommunication, they let him go. The killer disappeared into the night. Days later, a letter arrived with a grisly souvenir, a piece of Stein's bloody shirt, proving the Zodiac's authorship. Investigators were left grasping at shadows. Suspects multiplied. The most infamous was Arthur Lee Allen, a man whose life seemed to align with the Zodiac's in disturbing ways. He was a convicted child molester with a fascination for weapons and codes. He told acquaintances about fantasies of killing couples. He wore a watch branded Zodiac with the killer's symbol on the face. Police searched his home and found explosives and cryptography manuals. He seemed to fit perfectly, and yet handwriting experts ruled him out. DNA taken from envelopes didn't match. Year after year, Allen lingered as the prime suspect who never quite fit, the almost answer that eluded resolution. Others emerged, each convincing in their own way. Rick Marshall, a film projectionist obsessed with cryptography. Lawrence Kane, a Navy veteran with a brain injury and a history of stalking women. Earl Van Best Jr., accused decades later by his own son whose photograph bore a resemblance to the composite sketch. Even a career criminal named Gajkowski drew suspicion, partly because of his radical newspaper writing style that echoed Zodiac's mocking tone. Each man had believers and detractors, and each case unraveled under scrutiny.